introduce myself first. My name is Su Yen, and I'm the operations director for the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida. Welcome everyone to our Breakfast and Learn session for the month of January. So I'd like to present our presenter, whose name is Michael Selinger. He is the director of loan programs at the Miami Bayside Foundation. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. As the director of loan programs, Michael oversees the loan and educational programs for Miami Bayside Foundation. He brings with him over 25 years of experience in diverse industries. Most recently, he had a toy importing company. Additionally, he has held various positions in the art world, investment banking, real estate, and internet marketing. Michael holds a Master of Business Administration in Finance and Accounting from Columbia University. We'd like to wish a warm welcome to Mr. Michael Selinger, and to you, I give the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Su Yen. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. I am now going to bring up my PowerPoint, so just give me a second to share screen, and then we'll get on with the show. There we go. Okay, let me set up. All right, everybody should be able to see the screen right now. So to reiterate, today's topic is how to write a business plan. The goal really is of the talk is to inspire you to either start or revisit your business plan. And then along the way, we'll talk about some best business practices. Su Yen has already introduced me, so I'm not going to tell you much more about myself. I would like to introduce one of my colleagues who's on the line, Josh Numa. Some of you may know him. Josh recently joined the foundation and is an integral part of the loan program. So the foundation's mission is to empower small businesses run by minorities and women in Miami-Dade with the secondary goal of job creation. We do that through a number of different programs. There is what I call a future workforce development, which is the educational portion. We do grants and scholarships for high school students in underserved communities. That's predominantly in the city of Miami, not all Miami-Dade, but for the small business community, we do workshops, technical assistance. They're free, not dissimilar. This is just a taste of what you would get in some of them. We have a 101 class that's 30 hours over 6 weeks in evenings over Zoom. We do deep dives into financial literacy and marketing as well. And again, those are free. And then our big program is our loan program, which was mentioned. The foundation does loans up to $150,000 at 6% interest, so a very favorable interest for our constituents. The foundation is not afraid of looking at startups. They're not afraid of looking at low credit. As a not-for-profit, our mission is to get the money out there to help you as a small business owner achieve your goals and grow your business with the resources to obtain the resources you need to do that. So before I move on to the presentation, does anybody have any questions about the foundation and what it does? No? Okay. Sounds good. All right, great. So then let's move on. So as I said, one of the things I want to do is talk about some best business practices. We'll slowly move into the business plan part by talking about keys to success. Now, these are things that I've seen over the years for successful businesses. Hitting all these notes aren't going to guarantee success, but they are certainly common characteristics of businesses that I've observed to be successful. Most obvious, and yet so many people ignore this. Think of your cable companies. You need to be customer focused. Sales are just up for the scoreboard. It's really your customers that ultimately drive your sales. So your goal is to keep and find those customers. Now customers, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation, is a broad term, and not just to think about the person that's actually paying or buying your service or product, but your employees are customers, right? It's about keeping everybody part of the community, part of the tribe. So be customer focused. Be remarkable at one thing. Very often we meet with entrepreneurs at the foundation, and they've got all these wonderful ideas and they're trying to do so many different things and they all sound great. The problem is you've got limited resources, that is time and money. And if you try to do more than one thing, our experience has shown that you will unfortunately not be good at any of it. So it's tough to be a jack of all trades when you are an entrepreneur. So, just identify that core competency and focus on it. Think of Starbucks, right? You go to Starbucks for the coffee, then they layered in all this food. You're not going to go there to buy a sandwich or the pastries, but while you're there buying the coffee, you might buy those things. So think about your business that way. Core competency, what that main thing is. I'm not saying don't do other things, but stay focused on that one thing and layer in other tools that the customer might add to your offering or enhance your offering. Be authentic. What do I mean by that? I mean, own your brand. Don't just have a name and a logo and then not own it. You want to go to a restaurant where, if it's a high-end restaurant, you want there's a certain expectation, white glove service, tablecloths, right? If you're at a pizza parlor, you expect it to have a certain look and feel. So whatever it is that you're doing, just own it, because it's really your brand is really what separates you from everybody else out there. It's the way that you can differentiate yourself in what, and I hate to steal this phrase, but effectively a Me Too marketplace. Most small businesses are not doing anything revolutionary. They're doing things evolutionary. And so just own your brand. That is the way you're going to differentiate yourself. And that brand resonates through what the service is. So when people think of that service, they think of that brand. Your brand is what they think of. You want to be consistent. What I mean by that, I want you to act like a franchisor. Now, franchising is a great way to scale, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating a playbook so that everybody on your team understands what is expected of them, so that you can walk away and know that the business is running as efficiently as if you weren't there. Because it's very important that you, as a small business owner, take some time away from your business every so often, right? It's not just go, go, go. You need some personal time. But it also, the other advantage of that is it creates consistency, and we'll talk about that later, for the customer. And the customer, your job is to make the customer's decision process as easy as possible. And one way to do that is by being consistent. They know that if they are looking for a specific widget, they know where to go. They don't have to think about it. They've already done it once. They know that every time they go for that slice of pizza, whatever it is, or that service, that it's going to be the same. So that's one less thing we have to worry about in a world that's we're inundated with information constantly. Be curious. This is now getting back to owning creating time for yourself. You want to be constantly learning, just like you're coming to this today. Understand what you know, but also understand what you don't know, and spend the time. There's plenty of resources out there. There's plenty of there's so much money going into technical assistance for small businesses right now. There's plenty of opportunities to learn. Take an hour or two a week at the very least. And I highly recommend maybe even half an hour a day, listening to a podcast, watching a video, taking time like you are today. But you need to be constantly learning to understand not just that's the way you grow your business. And finally, be nimble. What does that mean? I mean, embrace change. As they say, stuff happens. it's inevitable. You may get, right now we're coming out of, or we're still in the pandemic, hopefully coming out soon. That is a change that has affected everyone, but it could be a supplier that you lose. It could be a major customer you lose. It could be new competition. It could very well be prices rising, which we're going through right now. The point is, you need to know that change is going to happen and embrace it, expect it, and don't sit back on your heels. And the best way to embrace change is by planning to manage that change. And with that, we're going to move into the business plan. So this seemingly self-canceling declaration, the plan is useless, but planning is essential, is the plan is just a noun, it's static, but the planning, the verb, the action is what is important. So you're not going to create a plan that is going to be dynamic and always be available. But the process is what is important. Understanding your steps. Professionals never wing it. So why do you need a business plan? Well, it's a roadmap to success. As I was kind of alluding to before, it allows you to crystallize your ideas for your business and put it all in one place. The nice thing about that also is it gets it out of your head, which allows you to think about other things. So once you set up your business plan and you have at least a roadmap to how you're going to get from point A to point B, then when those changes come through, when something happens, you'll have the time, the headspace to be able to think beyond what the plan is, what you're running through right now, and start to triangulate and triage how to attack the change or deal with the change. It's a commitment. We have found, or I have found over the years, that a lot of people talk about things, but not everybody does things. And one of the ways and that's just, everybody does that, right? One of the ways to get yourself to do something is to write it down. That automatically puts you into the ether. It puts you out into the world. You're putting yourself out there, and and everybody. When we put ourselves out there and other people know about it, we're more likely to achieve or go through with what our commitment is. And so the process is important from that standpoint. It also helps you focus. We talked earlier about being really good at one thing. By writing out your plan, you can avoid that scope creep. And what I mean is, we're not saying don't have all these great ideas, but write them down and stage them out as how you're going to attack them, so that you are slowly building all those little widgets into your offering and not trying to do every single thing at the same time. It's very easy to get caught up in this customer wants this and that customer wants another thing and the third customer wants a third thing, and trying to make everybody happy. You need to focus on one thing, one customer group. You can layer in those other things at a later date, but if you start trying to cover everybody and help everybody, you're going to satisfy no one. It shows you have comprehension of the process, right? So what does that mean? That means that you're communicating to the world, to your customers, to the market, to financial advisors like Miami Bayside, that you know what you're doing, where you're coming from, and where you're going. And it's also a great tool when you're bringing on new employees, especially senior employees. It's something that you can hand them. I've had a number of clients that I've mentored over the years, and they bring on somebody new and they haven't really everybody when you interview and you're going through the process, it's like everybody's on their best behavior, right? Everybody wants to it's like dating. Everybody wants to get to the end point, get into bed together. But if with this document, you can actually present it to them and go, this is who we are. This is what our brand is about, and make sure that your values align. And it's a great way to do that, because a lot of times new hires fail because values don't align. It's not because they're not competent or they don't have the skill sets, because most things anybody can learn. It's about having values aligned with where your brand is and what your brand is. Finally, it's a management tool. We talked about this, laying out your goals, what is you want to do, then your strategy, how you're going to attack that, what are the tactics for achieving your strategy, and then milestone those out. So for instance, your goal is to get more customers. You're going to use social media. Your tactic would be, all right, I'm going to think about Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and then milestone by attacking one at a time and figuring out when to do that. There we go. It's also a living document. Talked about this before. So, the plan is just a noun, it's static, but to make it living, you need to keep revisiting it. Run it, review, revise, repeat, right? You've heard that probably in a number of different things, but that's a way to keep it alive, keep it fresh. You should be revisiting and looking at this thing at least once a month, if not weekly, as a way to help grow your business. And that doesn't mean that don't just look at it, but actually actively engage with it, make changes, move things around. As an example, a business that you'll see, I'm going to talk about a little later, that I had importing toys. There were three markets that we thought we could hit. One was the toy market, one was bicycles, and one was motorcycles. And you'll see why in a bit. So we knew the toy market, we felt we were comfortable there. So rather than trying to hit all three because they're different animals, we said, all right, we're going to do toy. The next year, we're going to do motorcycle, and the year after that, bicycle. And then as we were going through that first year, we saw more demand from the bike side. So we then were able to look at our business plan and flip that and do bicycles first and then motorcycles. And that's just an example of how to use it as a tool, not as a static object. Any questions before we move on to the actual content? No? Okay, great. We'll have time at the end, hopefully, and I'll stay on longer if necessary for questions anyway. So these are the various sections of a business plan that the foundation looks at, and marketing is really important. That's why I've sort of layered out all those different categories. And we're going to now go through it. There's 1,001 ways to do a business plan. There's tons of programs out there. Use those as tools to help you, but just make sure you do the work yourself. You need to put in the hard work. If you pay somebody $10,000 for it, and there are people that do that, that satisfies the need at that one moment. You have no idea what's in it. It gets thrown into a drawer, and you just pissed, pardon my language, $10,000 away. So really do the hard work yourself. There's plenty of resources out there to help you. Our foundation, if you're looking at a loan, we're always working with clients to do that. Alternatively, there's the SBDC and SCORE, which are SBA resources that are free, and they have mentors and coaches that can help you with directing you and writing it. The easiest way I've always found in writing these is to take an outline like this, like an outline that Miami Bayside has, and just start brain dumping all the information you have about your business. Don't be concerned about whether it's in the right section or that you're filling in all the holes. And once you get all that information out of your head, to then start moving things around and then filling in the gaps. Remember, it's a business plan. It's daunting when you look at it, when you think about it, all these sections, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Business plan is really a series of small plans. Think of it that way, that each section is really a small plan. And when you start breaking things down into smaller pieces, maybe the task becomes less daunting and more easier to attack. Now let's go into the sections. So first section is typically you see as an executive summary. Before I jump into this, you may have seen or heard about the lean business model or the business model canvas. That's like a one-page, got 9 sections. It's helpful when you're starting to think about your business, but at the end of the day, when you go for financing or you're going to, and for other reasons, other times, you're going to need to have a full business plan. So that's just an interim step to get you to where we're going. Which is a written business plan. Now, this doesn't have to be like back in the day when I was an investment banker, we had what's called the thump factor, right? How much noise the business plan came when you dropped it on the conference table. Those days are gone. We've seen business plans as little as 5 pages. That's a little tight, but certainly you can accomplish everything in under 10 pages. The executive summary is the first section. That's usually 2 to 3 pages. It's like the Cliff Notes, and it's a summary of everything, but you have to do the bulk of the business plan, the backside, first to then break it down. And the other thing you'll see at the front end of a business plan is a confidentiality or an NDA. Most business plans that we look at just have the confidentiality, which is similar to the language you might see in the end of a lawyer's email, just putting people on notice that information is confidential. NDAs are typically is a legal document. It's a lot more intense. Typically, when you have a proprietary product, would be when you might introduce something like that. You ask them, the recipient, to sign that first before you release the bulk of the business plan. The executive summary is also nice because it's a little teaser about your business. You can send to other people as you're looking for funding, as you're looking for employees, and then if they are engaged and interested, you then send them the bulk of the plan. The first major section is the company description. This is your story. This is really important for the foundation, is the history, your why. Why are you doing this? How did you get into it? If you're opening a restaurant, was because on Sunday mornings you were cooking with your grandmother over when you were growing up and that inspired you. Whatever it is, that is your why. That is part of your brand, and that's really important to get out in this section. It's very helpful for the reader to understand your motivations. See sometimes the mission and vision statements. The mission is today, vision is the future. I don't recommend that you get that you need. I don't think you need these. We do see them in there, but most importantly, I would not suggest that you spend a lot of time on thinking about these, because you can get caught up in navel gazing, just trying to get as deep and as simple as possible, and it really keeps you off the task of actually getting the job done of building out the rest of the business plan. What you want to do is define the problem you're going to solve. What is it you're going to do, and how are you going to solve it? What's your value proposition? What's unique about you? And one way to do that or think about that is a SWOT analysis. A couple of slides, we're going to go through a SWOT analysis. And so don't worry about what that means just yet. This is also where you put down your goals and objectives. Again, we talked about earlier, right? What's your goals, your strategy, your tactics, your milestones? How are you going to attack what your growth plan is, and how are you going to attack it, your action plan? I'm going to continue to run. If anybody has any questions, I guess throw them in the chat. Maybe Sue Yan, you can interrupt me and let me know, or people just blurt out. I see there's a bunch of stuff in the chat, so hopefully somebody's monitoring.
Okay.
So SWOT analysis. So what does SWOT stand for? SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It is a way to start to take this complicated concept of your business and break it down into smaller pieces, right? This is all about breaking big problems into small pieces. The best way to do it is to brainstorm. We're going to show you what, in a second, we'll show you what a SWOT analysis looks, but before we get there, I just want to talk about it. Brainstorm, be honest. Don't just do it yourself. Bring in other owners, other employees, even family members that might know about you and or the business, so you get as much information in as possible. And then what's critical is then converting that SWOT into an action plan by seeing the connections, how you can take your strengths and your opportunities, right? Strengths, opportunities, to overcome the obstacles, those weaknesses and threats. So let's look at a SWOT analysis. So this is what a typical SWOT analysis is a 2x2 matrix, a pretty common thing in business world, the 2x2 matrix. Up top, you've got the internal factors, your strengths and weaknesses, and then the bottom, you have the opportunities and threats, which are external. So what are strengths? Strengths are things that you do well, resources, advantages you might have your competition. Weaknesses are going to be things that you need to improve on that the business lacks, limiting factors. They could be your location. It could be lack of employees. It could be personally, procrastination. That was one of the things I put on mine. You just need to be honest and play it out. And that is all the internal things that you can attack. The external things are a little bit outside your control. They're the opportunities or benefits, trends in your industries, perceptions of others on your business and industry. And then the threats are things that are environmental, competitive, funding can be a threat. For instance, in Miami-Dade or South Florida, the threat is obviously once a year we've got 3-4 months of potential hurricane. So that's a threat that you would see most likely on a analysis. So let me just run through an example. As I mentioned, I had an import company called Sound of Fun. We imported what's known as balance bikes. For those of you that don't know, it's a 2-wheel riding toy. The kids pad along like on the right with their feet on the ground, sort of rolling along. At some point, they build up the confidence and the balance so that they can lift their feet off the ground like the kid on the left, and then ultimately start to be able to then turn. It is the complete opposite. And then once they do that, they immediately move to a pedal bike without any problem. It's the complete opposite of the way we typically learn or teach our kids to ride bicycles, which is with training wheels. The problem with training wheels is the first thing, the pedals are in their way. So they're trying to pedal to go forward at the same time, balancing all the way up, for a young kid, up in the sky. And then they've got this steering going on. And so this is a concept that was big in Europe. It was just starting to take off in the US, and we just saw it as a great opportunity. So let me run you through the SWOT analysis that we did at the time. This is going back, already 10 years probably. So strengths. Product design and quality. I came from the art world, as mentioned earlier. So quality and design were really important to me. I thought those were the things that could separate the product from other products, and so that was a strength we saw. Another one was luxury market experience. Again, having worked in the art world, we had I had this experience in selling luxury. Weakness. New to the toy industry. Now we got the opportunities because my wife had toy stores in Bogota, and it was an opportunity to import into the US. So we weren't entirely new to the industry, but we were new to the importing, which is a totally different animal. It was an opportunity we saw. It was a new category in the US. It's still, I don't see a lot of them around on the streets, so it's seemingly still a new concept or category. And so we saw that as an opportunity. We felt that if we got, and we'll talk about why, and a threat. We were late to the market. Even though it was a new category, there were already metal ones out there that were starting to create some price pressure. And then finally, Amazonification. Amazon was becoming a factor at that point. Big issue was not only did they ship these objects, it took time to get it, but they were not obligated to charge sales tax at that time. So when you're talking about $100 item, that can be that can be $5 to $10, which is a big chunk of money for most people. So that was a factor. So we started looking at this and we're going, okay, now how do we use this matrix? And these are just samples of some of the things that we threw in our matrix. How do we use this to our strengths and opportunities to overcome our threats and weaknesses? Well, since it was high quality and we had luxury market experience, we were going to go after the high-end stores. We ultimately got into the MoMA Design Store, into Neiman Marcus, into Barney's, and we felt that by doing that, we could have the fight the final late to market, not have price pressure, and ultimately, if we needed to, we could lower the price. But we were going to start up as sort of the Rolls Royce of balance bikes and sell up top, knowing that we could then trickle down to others who would see it. The smaller mom and pops would hopefully buy in because of that. And we felt that also because it was a new category, even if we caught a small slice of the pie because of the price point, that pie was going to grow. And so that slice was going to become significant. To overcome and then we looked at this whole Amazon factor. And what we did was we said, okay, nobody can sell, you can only sell our product. And it's what's called MAP pricing, MAPP, manufacturers, something, I can't remember the term, but where you control the pricing. You say, all right, you cannot sell this object except on your website, anywhere else. We took control of Amazon and all the other third-party sales places. And with them, what we did was we actually had it priced at 10% higher than the MSRP. So if you went to Amazon, and what we were finding and hearing from the small mom and pops, that people would walk into their store and look at their phone to see if there was a better price on the web. And so when they went to Amazon, they would see that balance spike for $110 versus the $100 at the store. So they buying at the store, they get the instant gratification, and that extra cost of the sales tax was not going to play, in our mind, be a factor in their decision-making process, because we saw our customer, we were a B2B to C. So we had two customers. We had the small business owner, who was our main customer, but we also had the consumer after that we had to be aware of. And that's just kind of a way to think about and run a SWOT analysis. Does anybody have any questions on that? I see a lot in the chat. Suyen, is there anything we should address before I move on? All right, I'll take that as a no. Okay. So your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, normally at this point, I might have a poll and I'd say, okay, who likes Pepsi versus Coke? And typically what we'll find, and when I run that survey, is that about half the people like one versus the other. I mean, sometimes it skews a little bit, but we all have a deep affinity for what effectively is sugar carbonated water. And that's because they were really successful in building brands. Coca-Cola, you think of, fluffy, furry animals. It's wholesome. It's family friendly. Whereas Pepsi is more like freedom and joy and youth, and uses celebrity advertisers versus or endorsers versus polar bears. So it's really important to understand how the brand affects the consumer's purchase process. So let's talk a little bit about brand strategy. Again, this is things to think about from the business side, not necessarily things that have to go into your business plan. But effectively, your brand is your why. It's you. It's who are you and why are you doing this? So that then affects who your customer, what you're delivering, right? If you're selling bicycles, are you selling for the beachcomber, or are you selling for the road racer, right? Those are two different customers. It's two different types of bikes that you might have. That then defines who your customer is, and then how you're going to market to that customer, and then ultimately, where are they going to find it? Are they going to find it in a store? Are they going to find it online? And then this is a self-fulfilling or a continuous process, because as you grow your business, as you engage with your customers, and as you test marketing, you'll make subtle adjustments into this. But the only thing that doesn't change is your brand. That is going to be your consistency. You want to make sure that you hold that tight. So what is your brand? Your brand, again, is your personality. It's your culture. It's who you are. It's the promise that you're making, that you're going to deliver to that customer. When a customer sees the brand, there's a certain expectation of what's going to be delivered. That's the perception, right, of the customer. Does your brand fit into their story? At the end of the day, we're all running through life in our own little world, in our own little movie, and your goal is to get your product or service as a prop into the customer's movie. You are not the hero. They are the hero. You are the one that is helping them on their journey and making it easier for them, or satisfying issues that they have. It's the experience that the customer has. Remember, going out to a restaurant is expensive, but you do it because it's dinner in a theater, right? It's the experience of being in a restaurant that they're paying you're paying up for. And look, part and parcel with that is the expectation. We talked about this earlier, but you need to be consistent. Think about Disney. You go to Disney, or any Disney product for the most part, what you're getting. It's family friendly, right? That expectation is what you need to achieve as well. And finally, own your brand. Talked about this earlier. It should permeate everything you do. Example, nuts.com. You call them up and you get on hold, and it's like this goofy little music, and they start telling nut-centric jokes. So you get on, you're smiling, and by the time you finally get off, you're ready to make your purchase. But it's about the brand permeating. Another example, or a bad example. So I'll invest in Kickstarter things all day long because I just like to support small businesses, and you throw a few dollars at something and you get something back, right? So it's kind of like a fun experience. I recently, and I'm very much against plastics. I recently bought into a plant-based plastic bag company. I was like, wow, this is awesome, right? It doesn't look that expensive. It'll satisfy my family's need for plastic bags. And I'm all excited, and it arrives. And what did it arrive in? In one of those big plastic shipping envelopes with the plastic bubble, in it to protect it. That is not owning your brand, right? That is so the opposite of what they're trying to sell. That's the example of what not to do. If you're going to be environmentally friendly, then make sure that you're environmentally friendly all through your offering. So, marketing section. Let's talk about that. Again, your goal is customer acquisition. And that's really what you're going to talk about in this section. So what is marketing? Marketing is anything beyond spec. It is the perceived value by the customer of what you are giving. Right? It's what allows a restaurant that's basically giving you a breakfast, which is a couple eggs and toast, to charge $10 one place versus $5 in another place. You want that perceived value. You want to over deliver. You want the customer to feel like they underpaid. That $1 was less than the experience that they received for that dollar. And remember, people do business with people. It's all about relationships. So you want to build that trust, and that takes time. It's about empathy. People want to belong. There's a certain social status that's attributed to brands and places. So that's why people walk around with, that's why stores insist you walk around with their bag with their brand on it, and why people like to use certain bags afterwards, or walk around with like a Tiffany's blue box, right? It just, there's a certain association with that brand, and that association is important to that individual and the group of people that they or that are within their sort of worldview. Know, like, trust, right? You want to be the trusted partner that solves their problem. Okay, think about that. The trusted partner to solve their problem. You should not be out there yelling how great you are and why you're the best. That's not what the customer cares about. The customer cares about is how your product or service is going to satisfy the problem that they have. So when you do your marketing and when you do your copy, tweak it, right? You're not competing against other people. You're trying to tell the customer how you're going to satisfy their needs. It's also about connecting how you're going to align with their story. I talked about this before. We all are in our own little movies, right? The customer, remember, the customer is the hero. And you want to make sure that you are aligning with their story, that you're a prop in their story, in their worldview. Next section. So the first section of marketing that I like to see is the industry section. This is pretty basic. It's description, it's the size of the market, any trends that are going on in the market you're in. Very important here, and we always like to see, is an honest competition section. Remember, there's not only direct competition, but indirect. So as an example, we had a coffee shop that we were funding, and they presented their it was like a lounge coffee thing, and so who your competition? Oh, so they rattled off, Panther, Eternity, Starbucks, the usual suspects. That is their direct competition. But at the end of the day, all they're selling is caffeine. So indirectly, their competition is also Dunkin' Donuts. It's the bodega on the corner selling cafecita. You need to understand who those indirect customers are as much as your direct, so that you make sure that you're creating an offering that addresses your client's needs and acknowledges that there is competition. And the best way to do that is through a competitive comparison. It's a chart, list of different competitors, the different features, how they're positioning, what their price point is, and then in the last column, like how you square up against them. And best way, and as you're running your business, we highly recommend you cyber stalk your competition. What do I mean by that? I mean, follow them on Facebook, follow them if they have a newsletter, sign up for it. Walk into their location if it's a retail store every so often to see what they're doing, because they may see trends and things that you're missing. So it's important to understand, you leverage them to understand trends in your industry. Some of the ways to get to the description, the size, the trends are going to be some of the resources down at the bottom here. The library, the main library is great. Beacon Council, Google yourself, Google your clients, industry associates, and the best is going to be the most customer feedback if you are operating. Customers, next section. So who is the decision maker? Remember, there's a chain of customers. There's not just the person there's the user, there's the buyer, and then there's the influencer. Sometimes they're all the same person, right? You influence yourself for something that you want to use and then you buy it. But sometimes if it's a toy, right, the kid's watching some celebrity using something that they want to then get, and the parent is the buyer. So make sure you understand who the various decision makers are, so that you're creating your offering to address that. You want to figure out who your target market is, who your tribe is. These are the people that are going to cross the street in the middle of a hurricane and come into your store versus another store because they drank the Kool-Aid and they buy into your story and your brand. The great part about these people is not only are they going to fight through the hurricane, but they're going to be out there advocating for you. So they are free sales force. So understand who they are and make sure that you are directing your offering to them. That doesn't mean that other people aren't going to buy, but these are the people that are going to buy relentlessly, and they're the ones that you really need to focus on. Best way to understand who they are is by creating a buyer persona or avatar. Where are they located geographically? Demographically is what are their census information, age, how many children, financial, but most importantly is understanding psychographically what it is that drives them. This is like who they are, what motivates and excites them. And understanding that is really important in your creating a good, appropriate offering. And finally, under customers, I like to see how you talk about customer service. This could go in almost any section. But this is really important. It's about how you're going to engage and keep your customers. Think of some companies like Zappos spend no money on marketing and all their money on customer service, as they believe that part of the process is the most important. What is your offering? Next section. What are your products or services? What are the features or benefits? How are you going to satisfy their need? All that gets discussed. What's your pricing policy? How are you acquiring that product or source it or that service, right? If you need to use other people to satisfy your delivery of your service, where are they coming from? How are you doing that? And this all would go into that offering section. And finally, location. Location can be really important, especially if it's retail. to your offering? How easy is it for your customer to get there? Is there parking? Is it located near like stores or comparable stores? And how easy, and as important as how easy is it for your employees to get there and park? So, place. Where are you going to sell that? How are you going to find your target market? This is where you talk about that. Are you B2B, business to business, B2C, like Sound of Fun, B2B to C, business to business to customer, or are you B2G, business to government? But you talk about that here, and then how you're going to, not only what you are, but then how you're going to attack it. What are the different distribution channels that you are going to engage with and interact with? And finally, what is your process? What is the funnel that you're using, right? Especially in service, right? You start with, okay, you're all Miami-Dade, you're going after women at a certain age. And what does that funnel look like, and how are you getting those customers to you? And then think about your customer journey mapping. And customer journey mapping, it looks like this. It's sort of a pie chart, right? There's the pre-purchase. What are you doing to get them to actually consider your product or service? What is the experience like for them at the point of purchase? And most importantly, and we're finding today with a lot of businesses, what is that post-purchase experience? Think of Apple. Apple spends a lot of money on that post-purchase experience with their Apple stores and whatnot. And you can't, especially most businesses, even large ones, can't satisfy all these three sections effectively. And there's a lot of noise out there on the pre-purchase section, and we're seeing a lot of businesses now focusing more on the experience. The purchase and post-purchase experience. And you as a small business have to recognize that there's only, you need to pick sort of one of these quadrants and focus. Again, resources, time, and money are limited for you. Spend a couple of minutes just talking quickly about selling. It's a lot of people, it's important to drive your revenue, but a lot of people hate it. They understand they need it. So let's just spend a couple of minutes talking about selling. So it's really a mindset. You got to remember that you're selling emotions, that you're not selling a product it's emotions. So think about sushi, right? It's really just dead fish on rice, but that's not what's being sold. So you want to tweak it to that emotional side of the product or service. And remember, it's you, whatever your brand is, it's coming out of you. So put yourself into it. And remember again that the customer is the hero. It's not your product. And how are you going to satisfy them help them on their hero's journey? Some strategies. We talked about this earlier. Own the brand and over deliver. Be precise. This comes to your marketing, in your offering and on your website. Don't have a lot of fluff and verbiage that doesn't mean anything. I can't tell you how many times I go to a website looking for somebody and I just haven't, and I'm not a dumb guy. I have no idea what they're talking about because they're using crazy jargon. They're using all these big, multi-syllabic words that mean nothing. Keep it basic. Keep it basic. Make it easy for your customer to understand. And follow up on sales. There's so many times people fail in selling because they just make one attempt and they don't follow up. You really need to chase somebody multiple times when you're trying to get them down. A great tool is reciprocity. Way to think about reciprocity is when you walk by a store and they have somebody standing outside giving samples out. It's basic human nature. Somebody gives you something, then you feel you owe them something, and so you're more the customer or the person that takes that is more likely to come in and give you a chance to sell to them. And it's not just about a piece of pastry that you're giving them. It can be a white paper, like you see a lot of businesses do, as a way to engage somebody and get them to cross the threshold and allow you to talk them up. Similarity. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This is being liked. Everybody wants to belong to a group, so you need to understand your customer and what that group is that you're all around, and that similarity. Whether it's you all grew up in Miami-Dade, you all went to the same college, but there's, we all have similarities in different points, and we're more willing. That's why alumni groups are so important. We're all more willing to buy from somebody that we have some commonality with. And so you need understanding what the commonality, or creating it by mirroring people, is a strategy for helping sell. Power someone's name, so obvious, right? Everybody's favorite word in the human language is their first name. Use it, and you can't overuse it. The more someone hears their name, the better they feel. And finally, smile. When you pick up the phone to make that call, have a smile on your face. It comes through. Really important to smile. Org section. So here's where you put down your operations, how you're going to help, who your employees are, what your HR is, what your legal structure is, if there's any permits or licensings needed. Do you need, like with the toys that we had, what are the testing reports and insurance that I needed to have because it was going to kids? And most importantly, in today's world, is you should have, you don't need, but I would highly recommend you have a social responsibility plan or corporate social responsibility. Why is that important? We all, people today, especially if you're dealing with millennials and younger, it's very important to them. And so you need to start to think about having one within your business. And don't just have it as a one-off, like I'm going to give 10% of my sales to some random charity. It needs to be integrated as part of your DNA. You need to own it. It needs to be believable, because the millennials, they'll see right through it. Things like Tom's, buy a pair of shoes, we'll give a pair of shoes, is a great example. I'm not saying you have to give things away at such a value, but make sure it integrates with what your mission is and what your beliefs are. Talk about the key management people. What are their experiences? What are their, who are your advisors? Who are the people that are backing the advisors and professional services, the people that are filling in the gaps in your experience and your team's experience? Financials. Let's talk about financials. So you'll have the financial section. Here's where you'll have the historical numbers. If you've been in business, if you're a startup, obviously you don't. Projections would go in here. We like to, everybody likes to see 3 years with 1 month, first year monthly, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is a link, and Josh will post it into the chat for a template that the foundation has created that will help you build your projections. And again, I'll talk about projection in a second. You also talk about key performance indicators, things that you're tracking and monitoring. This doesn't mean that you're gonna, you're tracking sales, because sales is just, it's not relevant, but you might track sales by time of day. You might track sales by day of week. Those are things that could then help you adjust your offering and your team. And then if you're looking for money, you put down how much money, use of funds here. Risks, this is typically seen in an equity offering, like Uber, put down a risk that their drivers might unionize, or in the Miami area, you'd put down a risk as a hurricane, right? Environmental risk. Remember, nobody's gone into the small business because they love numbers. In fact, unless they're an accountant, but it's your money that's in it. You need to understand it. So spend the time, get over yourself, and really try to understand, because the financials are factual. They're the backbone of your business plan. It's how you make money. Quickly, I'd like to use this just as a quick way to think about, and this is really confusing, I know it, but right up here in the first part is your income statement, that often known as your P&L, and I just want to show how all these integrate. Then you have your balance sheet, and then we have what's known as a cash flow statement, not something you normally, most small businesses concerned with, because you're on a cash basis. But what's interesting to see here is how your income statement, your earnings match into your balance sheet, because that is what becomes your retained earnings. And then if you do have a cash flow statement, that becomes the start. The end of the cash flow then becomes your balance in your cash flow statement. So these statements are not just randomly created to drive you nuts. There is a logic behind them. And this is just to show you how they're interconnected. Projections, talked about this quickly before. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to move along. But should be, I would imagine, budgeting right now. And projections are just a longer term budget, right? That's one way to think about it. You want to make sure that you have, again, the first year monthly. The reason is we want to, the people, you want to know, we want to see that you understand the seasonality of your business, that there's ups and downs. And that's why the first year needs to be monthly. So bottom line, avoid outsourcing, do the work yourself, put in the hard hours, avoid fluff. Don't say you're the best in the world, even if the Miami New Times says. If you do, quote it, but don't just start puffing when on random, like, we're going to create the greatest X, Y, and Z. Avoid jargon. Remember, the reader is not in your business or in your industry. So try to use words that anybody would understand. And again, avoid hype. Don't oversell yourself. Do the research, do the work, seek input, have other people look at it, proof it, make sure you're not missing anything. Annotate, footnote, especially in your projections. Why did you make that number, put that number in a specific spot? Include visuals. If it's relevant, pictures are great. They do say 1,000 words. It also breaks up the monotony of the black and white, of the black letters on the white. And make sure you edit and proof as you're going through it. And finally, and review and update. Remember, look at this regularly, if not at least once a month, and then update it, keep it fresh. And finally, just do it. I thank you all for your time. I apologize if I went over, but I'm happy to stay on a little longer. I guess I just got under the wire, but I'm happy to stay on and answer for as long as you need to answer any questions. So.
Thank you, Mr. Salinger, for your presentation. Very informative. We do have a few questions. One person, Mrs. Lloyd, says, you spoke of business plan, marketing, and brand for small businesses. What key performance indicators can be used to measure the effectiveness of these tools?
I'm sorry, which tools now?
You spoke of business plan, marketing, and brand for small businesses. So she was asking, what were the key performance indicators that we could use to measure the effectiveness of these tools?
So key performance, the tools are very macro. You really, when you're talking about key performance indicators, you want to talk about micro or smaller pieces. So when it comes to, let's say, your brand, well, it's a hard question, because key performance indicators really are more like financial things, like, okay, how many, as I said earlier, what are the sales I'm making on a specific hour of the day? If you're a restaurant, understanding the difference between the numbers coming in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We've seen businesses that have shut down one or breakfast or dinner because they're not seeing the numbers that they thought. So it's just about breaking your business into the smallest pieces. And what you're asked, the three things you mentioned are large pieces, but breaking it down to smaller pieces so that you can get your head around it and understand how those things drive your business. I answered the question. It was.
Thank you, Mr. Salinger. There's also a question. There's Berbeline Christophe who's asking, she has a travel agency. Okay. So her travel agency is Beb's Tour Agents de Voyage and Multi-Services. It's based in Haiti. So she wants to know how to write a business plan.
I think we went through that, right?
So now what I believe the question is you say you can assist with business plans. How does one reach out to your foundation to get this assistance?
Okay, I'm gonna have Josh from the team put his contact information in the chat, and he would be a great resource to start with. And we'll send over, and I think Josh might have already put the template in the, somebody speaks French, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't speak Creole or French, I apologize. But he'll put some stuff into the chat. You can reach out to him. Also, Josh put in the SBDC and SCORE, which are other resources that you can reach out to that will provide coaching and mentoring. and help you with that guiding. And then you can go to SBA website even, and they have a business plan primer that will help guide you as well.
Thank you very much. So, Mademoiselle Christophe, il y a Monsieur Joshua Numa qui a mis toutes les informations sur le chat. Vous pouvez prendre ces informations et le contacter directement. Et Monsieur Salinger ne parle pas français. Si Monsieur Numa ne parle pas français, vous pouvez me contacter et puis je peux voir comment on peut s'organiser un rendez-vous pour en discuter ensemble. So I've asked her to reach out to Mr. Numa. If Mr. Numa doesn't speak French, then we can probably organize a meeting on the side to see how we could work together to make this happen.
Great. Thank you, Sonia.
You're welcome. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Salinger, very much for your presentation, and I invite anyone else. Do you have any more questions before we move forward?
Hello, just one quick question. Hi, I'm Marie Alex. I just out of curiosity, I wanted to know how long the foundation has been out there providing services for small businesses. I think it's wonderful. How long has it been?
Okay, so it's been a long time, shockingly. So the foundation actually was created when the Bayside Marketplace was created. And so that's like 35 plus years ago in the mid 80s. So that Bayside Marketplace is built on city land. And so one of the quid pro quos when the city ceded the land was the creation of this foundation, who, at the time, worked with small businesses in the city of Miami. The city of Miami was different then than it is today. And initially, it was just basically getting money from the marketplace, and then using that to seed other organizations. And about 10 years ago, new ED brought in Kathleen Murphy, the ED of the foundation, and with that, they sort of adjusted how they'd attack the mission. And part and parcel with that was the starting with the loan program. So since 2011, the foundation's given away almost $10 million, not given away, done almost $10 million in loans. And I think there's been, for the small business training, almost 20 different classes of that free training, another 30 hours. So it's really been kind of ramping up in the but the foundation's been around forever.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that.
Again, those of you who are on late, the foundation does, its mission is to empower small businesses run by minorities and women, secondary goal, job creation. It does it a couple of ways. Two main ways for small business is workshops that are free. You can reach out to us or Josh and we'll get you on a mailing list 3 times a year. There's a how to run a small business. In fact, we used to do them up at the when we were live in the Haitian Center up in the on 2nd and the 50s. And those are 30 hours over 6 weeks at night, how to run a small business, everything from financial literacy to legal. Then we do deep dives over weekends on marketing and financial literacy. But most importantly is our loan program. We do loans up to $150,000 at 6% interest, amortized over 5 years, so very low rate. The foundation will consider startups. We do recognize that our constituents' credit is often an issue, so we do credit as low as we say 575. But Josh, I think a couple months ago we did 2 small loans there. The credit was below 500. So it's a holistic approach that the foundation takes. We want to understand that we're not underwriters. I used to be an investment banker, as I mentioned, so we overwrite. We want to understand how you're going to use the foundation's money to grow your business and create jobs. That's what's most important to us, not necessarily what happened in the past, although that is important. But again, we're taking a kind of holistic approach looking forward. Any other questions?
So for anyone who is interested in reaching out to myself or Mr. Salinger and his team, feel free to contact me. I will add to the chat my contact information so you can reach out to me directly. I would like to
Question, please.
go ahead.
Hi, thank you first of all so much. This was great information. My question, in order to apply for a loan, you have to submit a business plan?
No, it's an iterative process. So we don't expect people to have a complete business plan. In fact, we like when there's holes in it. So it's a character loan. So we get to work with you and understand you and your business. There's an application. We do need to see projections and a business plan and other things. But again, we don't expect everything to be buttoned up. We are not a bank. We will work with you and help you build those things. We just would like you to put the work in and make that first step.
And so can someone provide then the requirements to apply for a loan?
Sure. If you reach out to Josh or put your information in the chat, Josh will send you, get in touch with you and start you in the process.
Okay. Thank you. Doing that now.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Josh, make sure you save the chat so we have all that, please.
So I would like to introduce Madam Chairwoman, Dr. Lumana Joseph, who's our chairwoman. We also have the past chairwoman, immediate past chair, Paola Pierre, who attended as well. So thank you for participating. There's also our vice chair, Mr. Princeton Jean-Claude, and our vice chair as well, Carl Monplaisir. We have members from the Breakfast and Learn Committee who has participated, members of the chambers and other members of the community who we are partnering with and who would like to partner with in the future. So that being said, I'd also like to take the opportunity to make a few announcements. I don't know, Peterson, if you can share the flyer with us for the Come and Learn. We will be having our Come and Learn session, which will be held on February 8th. It will be presented by Dr. Sasha Borgella, who is an intern at Jackson North, a medical, I'm sorry, she is a doctor, but I forgot her title. She's in internal medicine at Jackson Health System and Jackson North Medical Center. She will be doing her presentation on diabetes, weight control, and overall health. So we look forward to you attending. For those of you who wish to participate, it will be held at 6 p.m. The Common Learn sessions are usually the first Tuesday of the month, and it's usually in the evenings between 6 and 7. So this is a flyer that we're projecting right now. In case you're interested, you can also check us online and register online. And we also have a partnership with Hannah for the annual Heart Walk and Wellness Festival, which will be held on February 5th for those of you who are interested. And we also have a partnership with City of North Miami and for the annual Citizens Drive, which will be held on the 12th of February. We will share some more information as we get them. I've added my contact information in the chat in case you want to reach out to me. And also we have Fredlyn from HNVH. She has a upcoming free tie night, which will be held on February 12th. I don't know, Fredlyn, would you talk about it a little bit? Well, I don't hear Fredlyn speaking. So it will be on the 12th of February for those of you who are interested. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you again regarding the presentation on how to build a business plan. It was very informative, and I'd like to thank you for also sharing your insight from your personal experience with your businesses, especially the toy business, and how you were able to use that to give us information on how to build our business plan and where you fell short and where you presented your strengths and weaknesses and your experience in the SWOT analysis. And the quote that one of the quotes that you shared with us, which was actually very powerful, it is very important. The one where you talked about your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, by Jeff Bezos, which is very true. And I believe that a lot of people, when they're conducting their businesses or when they're starting their business, they forget about that part. So thank you so much for everything, for all the information, taking the time to join us and put out all your resources to assist us in learning how to build a business plan and making your team available to assist us with doing that as well. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for participating.
And
Have a
thank
wonderful day.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I enjoyed the talk. One thing I didn't mention, and that quote reminded me, is one of the most important things you can do for your business is walk into your business or Google your business like you're a customer and make sure that what you're seeing and what you're experiencing is what you want your customer to experience and see. And a lot of times we forget to do that. And customer sees a lot of details when they that you may be not aware of.
Yes, indeed. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Everybody be safe out there.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you very much.